Right, so placement of details. As I was kind of saying and completely got mixed up in the last part. So the problem I had last time was that with everything being hidden and stuff, I had paint on scene rather than paint on selected object. You can see the difference here, scene, selected object and grid, right? Now, as long as I've got selected object, it means that it's not going to, especially with this number of polygons, get confused and try and draw on everything else. It's an interesting balancing act, let's just say. Okay, now, again, let's get my tools and isolate, or whatever, this selection, and then paint on. You can see that it paints on just fine now. Okay, so that's the simple rivet. Now we're going to go straight on to detail end cap. And the good thing about this is that we'll be able to basically use the polygons to mark out where the pieces go. You see, like that. Then like that. And there like that. Now, you have to think to yourself, do you need this for every part? Well, if it's looking good, it helps. I think what I'll do is I'll have these for certain parts, but not all of them, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to use F4 just so I can find the middle polygons where I need them. Because I think these work out quite nicely as a kind of weird locking ornamental bolt thing. But other parts, we can just stick 4 of those things on. And this is a great way of like sticking a load of detail on your model, because it makes it a lot faster. Okay, that fits in with that. Now I'm going to go over here. I'm not putting anything on the top or bottom or left or right sides. I'm being as careful as I can really just to do this part. Now the good thing is that because I'm using the placement tool, which I developed and, you know, Autodesk kindly included in Autodesk 3ds Max after they sorted a show. There we go. I didn't develop it, it's kind of my little discovery. It was back at the time, as you probably know if you've heard this story before, because I don't go on about it a lot, but there was a tool I really needed basically back when I was developing the first Dreadnought tutorial, because for placing of rivets and details, I used to basically, you know, have to use splines and stuff and have it come from the spline, and it was a really inefficient way of doing it. So because what I'd do is I'd kind of position it along the spline, I'd use space along the spline or whatever as a way of getting the detail in. The thing is, this kind of method, it doesn't really work too well. So in the end I was left with like quite a non-realistic looking object. So while I was developing the Dreadnought, which I did really as a kind of a hobby project, I came across the hair placement tool because I was just looking around in the macros that came with 3ds Max. And lo and behold, this hair placement tool was basically there for placing guide hairs in 3ds Max, which was interesting because at the time 3ds Max didn't actually have real hair functionality, so I'm not sure why they'd included it. It was like almost like the joke option. It's like, haha, one day we'll have decent hair in Max. And so what happened was I realised that I could use this kind of plugin just to put hair on things. Well, rather than putting hair on things, it would accept any mesh object, and suddenly it was so much easier. It was just damn ridiculous. I mean, you could basically create this library part system, which is what I use even now. I'm doing it right now, and you could kind of swap between them and place them and all that kind of thing, and it was great. I used to obviously point people to where the macro was or supply the macro. It was only like a few lines. It wasn't even a particularly difficult one. And it was a great way of getting stuff done. And then I remember I showed it off one time at an event that Autodesk were at, and I remember a few people were like, wow, that's really, really useful, because it is. It's a ridiculously useful way of getting detail on your model. I mean, if you look at what I'm doing now, by the time I'm finished, my model's going to have like all these placed rivet parts that give it this real look that it's been machined and assembled and bolted together. I mean, after this, the detailing just is way easier, because all we're concentrating on at that point, we've done the big pipes. We just need to, I mean, look, I can just stick that there, and it's in the right place. I can stick that there and that there. See, we've got 2 rivets coming in the right place there as well. I mean, that's the point. Using this kind of placement system saves us just the most inordinately huge amount of time possible. Now, let's have a look over here. I may as well do some on this. Now remember, if I'm using symmetry, I don't necessarily have to do it on both sides. But I think what I'll do is I'll come out, so I'm no longer in the painting system. And I'm going to hide this part, so hide selection. And that'll just give us these. Okay, and I'm just going to start with this one, and just use my attach tool and just go around it. Just slowly changing their colours, whatever's one after the other, yeah? So, look at them, there we go, attach. Why do you have to be so awkward, you horrible thing? I don't want to have to add them individually using a list. Fine, I'll just group the damn things. It's going to be awkward like this. Okay, so group them. There, they're done. Pow. Okay, now unhide all. Thing is, I'm using like 2 different recording tools at the minute, so I'm surprised it's not even collapsed. Give it time, it probably will. Front, zoom. Right, so now what I've got to do is move these across to that side. So if I get shift, I've just shift and moved these like that, and then I can use my mirror tool, and then I can just drag them back until they're in the right place again. Okay, so let's have a look over here, just make sure there's no gaps. Gaps are the devil's work. Okay, just check that, that's fine. Okay, that's cool. Now if I right click convert to editable poly incidentally, you'll notice it is still a group. That's okay. Now I'll go over here and get this group. Ungroup. There we go. This will make attaching these things a lot easier though, because now I can attach them all to this unit. Now this tends to be a bit of a fun old game actually, because what you have to do is you have to play like find all the grayed out pieces game. And if you've attached like a couple of thousand of these, I mean, I know you can do it by select, okay, and that's fair enough, we can do it by select, but problem with that is you tend to select the tools at the bottom that you've been working on, and I don't really want those in this. I don't really want those attached. Doing it by hand, even though it takes like a couple of minutes extra, it's worth spending the time on it. So I'll just go around. I mean, once we've done this, we have our first stage of iterative detail done. We've got the hoses at the front, we've got our bolts on both sides, basically. It's a pity it doesn't like do a marquee attach, because that would be cool. You know, you just like marquee attach it by dragging, but no, that'd be too much to hope for, I'm afraid. There we go. By the way, I apologise if it's noisy here. We have what in the UK is called half term, or torture time if you're a parent. One of my sons has just informed me that he has unblocked the upstairs sink. So I'm looking forward to going up there with my spanner later to find out exactly what has happened. I don't know if you get that sinking feeling when you're told by a small child they've repaired some sort of professional plumbing work. I know I do. Anyway, enough talking complete shit, as my grandma would say. Just going to continue adding these details on. It'll only take me about another 4 minutes, if that. And then I'll put some detail around the front. And then once I put some detail on the front, like I say, our first stage iterative detail will be complete. And we can all cheer. The cheerleaders will come out for smoochies, which would be nice. I don't know what exactly the whole relevance of these St. Cuthbert's Cross style bolts is, but I do quite like them, so as long as I like them, they stay in. Because remember the whole Bob Rossism I told you about? Okay, happy little cheese, this is our world, etc, etc, etc. It is, so you can make it wherever you want. There we go. And just swing it around. Look at that, there's one. It's hiding. Don't like it when they hide, do we? No. There we go. Okay, and yeah, that's looking cool. Alright, right click out just to stop attach doing anything anymore. And we still have some options for paint, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my detail end cap, press paint, stick it in the middle, bammo, and then down here just have a look at how fine to the edge those go. Oh, that's perfect, I like that. Okay, and here and there, and now we can go up, and the good thing is that we know that these are the right distance, and so I can do this. There we go. And then over here. Now, the thing I learned when I first started doing placement of details is less is a lot better than covering your model in about 1 trillion billion rivets, because it just looks stupid. So just be careful how much detail you're putting in, okay? If you place a thing in and you think to yourself, that looks a bit like overkill, it probably is. Just stop. Think to yourself, does it need to be there? Most of the time the answer is going to be no. If you think it looks wrong, it's probably wrong. Okay, I'm going to close this down and just attach these last bits, and then what we can do is we can let 3ds Max, basically without the edges on, give us a good idea of how it's going to look. I know at the minute I'm not doing any texturing and stuff, so I'm not even designing it for texture at the moment. Okay, but that is on the cards, so don't panic. Okay, so now we can see the difference it's made. Okay, if I just leave 3ds Max just for a few moments, you'll see that it starts to kind of pick out the detail and do all the bits we want it to. Gives us a lovely effect as well. Okay, so in the next part of the tutorial I'm going to start filling in the gaps in the side of the torsos. You know how you can see all the way through it. We don't want to do that unless you want to start creating the internals. If you want to create the internals, that's up to you, but I'm not going to, because I have not a flipping clue how a robot like this would work, so I wouldn't even know where to put a big spring. So, in the next part, doing more stuff on the outside. So, until I see you again, bye bye for now, big hugs, give your mum a kiss from me. Bye bye.